of people are talking about, sorry there's been an echo, I didn't realize it, but a lot of people talking about buying a bunch of 30 round like P-Mags or whatever, because you can get them for 10, 11 bucks, you know, just about anywhere, maybe 12 on the high end. But buying a bunch of them, running over to Maryland, or find somebody that lives there, either way, and selling them for 25 bucks a piece and making a profit, which I don't agree with. I can see both sides of the argument. Personally, I couldn't do it. I couldn't surrender anything regardless of the amount of money. That just goes against me personally. I just couldn't do it. But it reminds me of something that the NRA, a group I can't stand, but nevertheless, several years back, they had a gun buyback similar to this one in Chicago. And I remember what the NRA done at that time. They had a lot of their members from that area and surrounding places give us all your guns that do not work. Ones that are broken beyond repair, not worth repairing, just junk. Stuff that should just be thrown in the trash. Well, they collected all these junk guns, took them to the buyback, got paid, used the money to buy a bunch of brand new single-shot .22 rifles, and opened a shooting camp for kids. Now that I'd have to commend them on. That was kind of smart. I mean, I like that. But nevertheless, I mean, I just couldn't surrender it. Because the money doesn't mean a thing to these groups that are doing it. They care less. They just put out their propaganda crap to make people be willing to submit it for next to nothing. So it's not like all these groups are running out of money and we can't give anymore. That ain't got a thing to do with it. Bloomberg and all them billionaires, they pump ungodly amounts of money into these type of things. So, you know, I couldn't, you know, just hand over anything, because this will empower them. You know, if nobody sold them a single gun, you know, they might not do this again. I mean, they could, but, you know, it would actually make them think that, hey, wait a minute, nobody wants to give up their stuff. We've offered them what we feel is a fair amount of money and blah, blah, blah. But if nobody does it, you know, they might think. But, on the other hand, when people in mass start selling off their stuff, they keep right on doing it. Another problem is, well, that's the issue. Rooster, you put it out. You kind of made my point before I even got to say it. Yeah, you don't want to give up your $600 handgun for $100, obviously. And they really don't think anybody will. The problem is, it'll be guns that people have inherited, or the biggest case is, there's no questions asked. So you get the local crackhead down the road there that's all whacked out on God knows what, and he hears, oh, if I turn in some guns, I'll get money. So you go off to work or go out to dinner one night, he kicks your front door in, steals your guns, runs over to the law, sells it to him, he's got all his money, you're up a creek. Even if, you know, you can prove it's him, you'll never get your stuff back. And he's probably been in and out of jail so many times, they ought to put a turnstile in for him. So he could really care less if he goes to jail. That's just free room and board, so who cares? So that's the whole issue. Is, now if somebody come up to you or me to sell us a gun and we buy it and find out that it's stolen, we'll go to jail. That's receiving stolen property and a whole other laundry list of charges with it being a firearm. Second thing is, when the cops do it, it's legal and they don't get charged with nothing. So that's the biggest issue, you know, with all these gun buybacks, is it's condoning theft. It's promoting it. You know, there was a story, I don't know, a year or so ago, the guy, it was out west anyway, I don't remember the state, but he was a huge gun collector, almost a hoarder of sorts, and they said he had over a ton of ammunition and all this mess. Well, he died, and his family gave every bit of the stuff to the local law enforcement for it to be destroyed. They didn't want those death machines out on the street and all that mess. You know, you can kill somebody with a hammer, a screwdriver, a pencil. It doesn't matter. You know, none of my guns have ever got out in the middle of the night and caused trouble or done something stupid. You know, if I unlocked my safe, opened the door, left all the doors in the house open, and sit back, my guns would still never on their own walk out and do a thing. So, you know, they need to quit punishing law-abiding citizens. We got a people problem. If they would make the punishments more stern on individuals that commit these crimes, then you might see a change. You know, you look at areas that have very, very strict laws against whatever, to where they actually, you know, 100% enforce the laws, strict punishments and all of that, then you'll notice that those kind of laws actually reduce some crime. And so we don't need new laws on the books. The laws we have in place as far as, you know, gun crimes and all that, they're fine. Just enforce what we have. If they would, you know, it's like my little town. Well, I say little, we got about 14,000 people here. We got a huge drug problem, one of the worst in the state. Reason is, these people go to in front of the judge, and as long as you're good at paying your fines, they'll let you out right away. You'll do no time in jail. Had a murder here in town that was witnessed by over 100 people. Girl beat to death on the sidewalk. Nobody involved in her actual murder was charged with anything. They spent almost no time in jail. You know, it was nothing. It was an open and shut case. Oh, well, she had prescriptions in her system, so that's what killed her. No, not that her brains were beaten out on the sidewalk. You know, so that's the whole problem here, is nobody's held accountable. It's just seen as dollar signs. Criminals are seen as money makers. You look at our county jail's website, and I would say 95% of the people in there are ones that don't pay their fines, or the few that are being transferred to somewhere else. But for the most part, that's what it is. I mean, they even passed a law here that if you attempt suicide, that is illegal, and you'll be fined. I know a guy who had his own issues, whatever. You know, I'm not getting into none of that. None of my business anyway. But he went to court over an attempted suicide and got charged money for it. He got a fine. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know court cost here can be up to $100 or more. So they'll whack you a court cost and a fine for attempting it, because that's attempted murder. I mean, it's just stupid stuff like that. What if the guy had, money issues is what caused him to go off the rocker to begin with? You just made his problem even worse. But if you succeed in your suicide, of course, well, nothing they can do to you anyway, but, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, it's all just a money racket. And the judge that we have, nobody ever runs against him, so he automatically gets the job. Nobody wants the hassle. So it's all just a mess. I don't know if there's any solution or not, you know. Our largest gun rights organization, Buckeye Firearms Association, a group that I got a bad taste in my mouth for anyway, but that's neither here nor there and non-related. But we've been, the gun rights organization I am with, Ohio Gun Owners, we have been fighting for quite a while to get Stand Your Ground passed here. Well, we were very close to getting it done. We had House Bill 228 recently, which they called Stand Your Ground, which really wasn't. But we had an amendment to it to make that one of the best Stand Your Ground, bills in the country. It would have been great if it would have passed. But the big Buckeye Firearms group there, Jim Irvine, I'll call his name out, I'd care less. He done some backroom dealing and whatever and got the bill gutted. Took that part out. So our gun rights group stabbed us in the back. They killed it. So they said, oh, well, it would have never passed if we, would have left everything in and blah, blah, blah. Now, if that kind of stuff would have failed because the lawmakers voted it down, I still wouldn't have liked it. But I could deal, I could deal with it. I could fight that issue. And, that's another deal. But when you got somebody that's supposed to be on your side, supposed to be one of the good guys, and they stab you in the back, that's something hard to even fathom, but it definitely happened. Money talks, I agree. That's why I've never been a fan of lobbyists of any kind. I don't care if it's gun lobby or whatever. Not a fan of any of them. For the simple fact, if you can get a politician to vote for you, and the money always comes out somewhere in the works, that, okay, we spent $100,000 to change this politician's mind to vote our way, and alright, we got a good law passed. Alright, we got a good pro-gun thing passed. Costs $100,000, but it went through. Alright, your anti-gun Bloomberg nuts get wind of that and say, oh, well, it took $100 grand to get it passed. Good to know. I'll go in there and write me a check for $250,000 and change the guy's mind. He could care less about your issue. It's like an eBay auction on laws. Whoever the high bidder is gets their version of it passed. So you got to get people like me, you, all the rest of us, to do the work. Call your politicians, complain, do whatever it takes to actually change the people's mind. Get them to think, consider it another way. When you do that, you'll be a lot better off, and then it's a lot harder for somebody with a good checkbook to come in and just get them to change their mind. The same way that we won't sell our firearms at a buyback regardless of what dollar sign they put on it. Because of our mindset. That's the whole thing you got to get everybody else to think at. Do it for what's right, not for what makes your wallet a little bit fatter. Yes, I've been buying silver myself. Started back in a few months ago. After I sold out everything I had back in the $40 range. Maybe I can do that again. Who knows? They used to have buybacks here when I was a kid. They haven't had any for years because I don't think they would work. But, well, I don't know. They might work, though, if they do those no questions asked type deals. But we had one years ago. I was still in school at the time. It's back in the 90s, if I remember right. And they were giving, I think it was a $100 gift card to the grocery store, to Kroger's, if you turned in a gun. Now, they did have one not real long ago, within the last, 8 or 9 years. And it was even more sickening to me than these gun buybacks. They had one for kids. Bring in your squirt guns and your cap pistols and all that kind of stuff. And they gave them a bag of candy if they turned it in. I remember that one. That was even worse. I mean, and then you get other pro-gun people that say, well, quit letting the politicians make the decisions. Why don't you let the people vote on it? Which, that sounds good, except elections are so rigged anymore that it would never go the right way, no matter what the people say. So that won't work either. But making a fuss can do a lot of good. Our state Supreme Court here, and I'm in Ohio, if I didn't already say that. Our state Supreme Court a couple months back had an anti-gun law. I don't even remember what it was right offhand. But they were going to do it on their own. Like, not make a law, not do nothing. Just, hey, this is the way it is. Tough. So, we got on the phone, called, crashed their email servers. I called 2 or 3 times, you know, in that same day. Just raised a ruckus. And they finally come back and said, wait a minute. There's more people that care about this issue than we thought. We changed our mind and we're not going to enact what we previously said we were. And they dropped it. So people can make an impact. You just got to get people to do it. Now I understand everybody can't go to a rally or a protest. I have that issue myself, no car. But there's always something you can do. You know, call your politicians, call your senators. I don't care if they're the most anti-gun person in the world. Call them every day. Call them 10 times a day. You know, whatever. Makes no difference. And I'm not a fan of... I know a lot of people use them, and I do to a certain extent. But when your gun rights groups, even Gun Owners of America and state groups, they'll send you out those like action alert deals with a pre-written email. Those are okay. But I usually, before I send it, I have that as kind of the second part of my email. Put your own words in there first at the beginning. Because once they get a number of those canned responses, then they'll put in the first couple sentences or something, and that'll automatically kick yours to the trash can, you know. Won't even look at it. But if you type your own statement in first, then it's got a better chance of getting through and maybe getting a response. And you got to be careful with the politicians, too, that say, well, I support the Second Amendment, but... Or, we need common sense gun. No, we don't need none of that. We need people to do what's right. Follow the laws that are already there. If somebody breaks the law, you know, throw the book at them. Do what needs to be done. But I haven't broken any laws, so leave me the heck alone. You know. My firearms are innocent. They didn't do anything. They didn't run around and shoot up the town and all that kind of stuff. Cause havoc. Nope, they're sound asleep in the safe where they belong. Other than the one on my side. But nevertheless. Hey, I had a thought, though. That would actually, if I was like an animator or something, I could make a cartoon. That'd be kind of cool. Like, you know, like all the guns like in your safe. You know, they could be like a sitcom, you know. They'd be all jealous because you got your carry gun. And, well, mine's a Taurus, but, you know, like Mr. Taurus, he gets to, like, go around town and see the sights and go everywhere and travel while me, you know, Mr. AR is stuck in the safe all day and don't get to travel. Hey, that could be a pretty cool little sitcom, I guess you would say. I don't know what you would title it, but could be interesting. And not technically there, Rooster. The main reason we got the Second Amendment is to protect us from our own government. Foreign invasion, though, runs a close second, though. But the main thing is to protect us from, you know, the Democrats and Republicans and anyone else that might turn tail and try to be a tyrannical government. To prevent us from turning into Europe. Put it that way. What a lot of them fail to think about is they're trying to silence our First Amendment. And that is going to be very bad for them. And they say that, you know, they always say the amendments were not written in any kind of order. But I think there's a reason why at least the First and Second Amendment are written that way. Why the first is first and second is second. Freedom of speech. The Founding Fathers were not stupid. And they knew that a bunch of stuff was going to happen that we didn't like and didn't agree with. They knew that. But they also knew that they wanted us to use our voice first and foremost. So that's why they put the First Amendment as freedom of speech. They could have easily said, the First Amendment was gun rights. But that could have led to the mindset of every time a politician don't agree with you, you pull out your gun and shoot him. And they didn't want that. They knew that wasn't the correct way to go. So you had to use your voice first. So freedom of speech. Now, when you've used your freedom of speech to its fullest extent, or they silence it to the point you can't use it, then number 2 comes into play and you pull out the firearms and do what you got to do. 1776 Part 2. So, a lot of people will say that the order doesn't matter with the amendments, but in the case of the First and Second, I think that was completely intentional why they were put in the order they were. Could I be wrong? Maybe. But that's how I see it. And that's what we've done so far, is used our voice. Now, using our voice has done no more than kick the can down the road at this point. But, nevertheless, it has delayed things, if nothing else. But the issue that I see is, this is very similar to 1776. In the fact of, the battle line was drawn. Both sides were standing there, armed to the teeth, ready to go. Problem was, nobody wanted to actually pull the trigger the first time. They never did, have any records of where the first shot came from, which side fired it. The actual legit, first shot. So that's kind of where we're at now again. Nobody's actually pulled the trigger. Yeah, people say the shot's been fired with laws and all that. I don't mean none of that type of stuff. None of that legal shots fired. But actually pulling the gun out and using it. Nobody's actually done it yet. Now, if somebody goes and, I don't know, shoots Trump, shoots one of the Democrats, Pelosi, Feinstein, one of them, if somebody does something like that, then that could actually fire it off. And then it could be guns blazing, 1776, type of deal. I don't know. But this is why I think a lot of people in this country have not done anything yet. And you look at Europe and people have done something. The reason, this is Belgium here, but you can look at the yellow vest in France. Alright, France would be a good example. One reason they finally started taking to the streets and why we haven't here. When those crazy laws that their leader, whatever his name was, Macaroni, when he decided he was going to jack the gas up and all these taxes and all this kind of stuff. When he done that, that affected every single individual in France. There wasn't nowhere you could go. You couldn't escape it. When the documents were signed, that affected every French person there. And so they got ticked off and they took to the streets. That has not happened in the U.S. We see laws get passed. Oh, that's New York. Well, I don't care about New York. I don't live there. That's California. They're lost cause. Don't worry about California. I don't live there. Florida, same thing. Oh, they're rigging elections and passing this and that, but I don't live in Florida, so it doesn't matter. Screen went blank. It'll come back. But, with France and some of these other European countries, they had nowhere to run. So, until something happens in this country that affects every single person from coast to coast, you know, there's nowhere you can run to escape it. It's the law of the land that, you know, all 50 states are included in this. For example, let's just use an example of a gun ban, since we're on a firearms topic. Let's say it gets noted on the news that, okay, at noon tomorrow, all guns in the whole United States will be outlawed, and we're going to start knocking doors, coming and getting them, and surrender them, or we'll shoot you on sight. All right, if that order come out this morning like that, you would have people rising up coast to coast, every state, suburb, little town, dot on the map, people be ticked off and fighting back. But when those same type of laws are passed in Maryland or California, Washington State, well, you've got all the other states that don't care because that doesn't affect them. So we're going to have an event, I hate to say, that's going to actually affect everybody. Even 9/11 didn't do it because that was looked at as a New York issue. You know, granted, I was in Ohio, I saw it on TV like we all did and all that, but that particular day, I still done everything the same as I did every other day. So, you know, whatever. So it's going to take an event, like I said, that'll happen to where you will have nowhere to go to escape it. And when that happens, hopefully it's not too late, but it's going to be very close to being too late at that point. So, or even if there's enough talk, because I don't think that this macaroni dude over here in France, well, this is Belgium here, but nevertheless, if, I don't know if he passed all those laws or if he was just going to, I'm not sure, but nevertheless, even if word would get out that there was a 99.9% chance that there was going to be some nationwide law that affected every American, you know, if that even gets talked about on a big enough scale that it looks possible, then that could spark it. But it's going to take something on that magnitude. Otherwise, there will be pockets of people that it will affect. The majority, it won't. What people fail to realize is, though, alright, this town banned guns today. That don't affect me. Tomorrow, the next town bans them, and the next town, and the next, and the next. And last thing you know, you're the last town. You didn't care about the rest of the country, so, hey, why should they care about you? Just join in the misery with the rest of us. You know, I've heard that from California gun owners before. Why should we care about your laws? You never cared about us. So, that's my take on it. Could I be wrong? I don't know. I'm just a dumb white dude on YouTube. What do I know? I just put my 2 cents out there, and it is what it is. I'll turn the audio back on. I'll be back in just a few minutes.
I'm not going closer. I'm not going closer. No, fuck that. I'm good like that. I'm good there.
Die politici en journalisten die beweren dat massamigratie een spontaan en oncontroleerbaar fenomeen is, zijn diezelfde politici en journalisten die met hun Schaffendas-beleid de bewuste politieke beslissing namen om miljoenen illegale migranten naar Europa te halen, zonder dat deze mensen enige kans op integratie of een toekomst hadden. Zij zijn degenen die verantwoordelijk zijn voor het feit dat er niet verder in het Maximiliaanpact en het Noordstation honderden mensen zijn die in onmenselijke omstandigheden liggen te creperen van de kou. Zij verkochten ons decennia lang sprookjes over massamigratie, maar kunnen nooit een antwoord geven op één belangrijke vraag. Hoeveel migranten is genoeg? Maar toch is er erosion is geen spontaan en oncontroleerbaar fenomeen geweest, maar wel het gevolg van een politieke beslissing. En als een politieke beslissing heeft gezorgd voor die massamigratie, dan kan een politieke beslissing er ook voor zorgen dat die wordt stopgezet. En ja, beste mensen, dan kan een huidige politieke beslissing er zelfs voor zorgen dat die massamigratie wordt omgedraaid. We leven in een historische tijd. Wanneer er zal worden geschreven over deze periode en men terugkijkt of we het goede hebben gedaan, of we recht zijn blijven staan, dan zal het een erezaak zijn voor de vele generaties die na ons komen, dat we nu onze rug hebben gerecht om een voorbeeld te stellen voor Vlaanderen, voor Europa en voor de toekomst.
Organisatie op wie wij altijd kunnen rekenen. Namens Voorpost, Bart en Bakker.
Hij zoekt gewoon met de kelder.
Kameraden, ondanks de tegenstrubbelingen van de dictatoriale PA's hebben wij dan toch het recht op manifesteren juridisch kunnen afdwingen. Wij hebben de krachten gebundeld om hier vandaag een duidelijk signaal te geven. Jullie massale aanwezigheid bevestigt dit nogmaals. Het verbod op deze manifestatie was duidelijk politiek geïnspireerd. En tegelijk ook een bekentenis. Een bekentenis omdat hun argumentaties steeds zwakker en zwakker worden. Want het is niet de eerste keer dat de politiek incorrecten zoals wij de mond worden gesnoerd en een verbod opgelegd krijgen.
Okay, I'm back. I had no idea what they were trying to say, but nevertheless, probably something about we're ticked off and need to send all them other people back where they come from, you know, things of that sort. All I can say is it's crazy times we live in. Yeah, Europe is kind of a glimpse into our own future. Let's put it that way. If we don't straighten up around here, then we're going to end up like they are. And they can give you 1,000,001 reasons why, you know, that it doesn't work. I mean, you'll get the idiots out there that always say, oh, well, our life in the UK is great and we don't have all these issues that I've personally been accused of making up the issues that Europe has. You know, well, we don't have hardly any guns, so we don't have to worry about school shootings and all of that, and we don't have all these migrants, you know, attacking people every day. That's all just hyped up, you know, by the media. No, not at all. It's people that are too scared to talk out about what's really going on. Fear has beaten the majority of people already. Well, I can't speak out. I'll go to jail. I'll have this happen. I'll have that happen. You think our forefathers worried about it? They knew they could be killed for their beliefs and their ideas. And some were. But they figured, you know what? Screw it. You know, they're going to kill me. They're going to have to kill me. But I'm not going to change my beliefs and submit for no reason. And we need to go back to that same mindset. I know a lot of people will say, but I've got kids. Well, that may be true, but you can look at it this way. Do you want to fight for what's right, maybe be taken down in the process, let your kids see that, and remember that, hey, my mom or my dad, they stuck up for what was right. And that'll empower the kid to do the same. Or, oh, mommy and daddy got scared, so they surrendered to the big man. I guess I better do the same thing. And then, if they have kids, the cycle continues. So you gotta do it. Fight for your kids' future and let them see the fight. That's the big thing. Let them see it. Let them know why you're doing what you are. Why you don't agree with whatever. Let them know. The left is sure doing it to their kids. The left is sure telling their kids why they think Trump is the bad man and why they believe this way and that way. You know, the kids are the left is doing their best to get their kids to follow in their beliefs and their footsteps. We as people on the right need to do the same thing and have the same amount of drive as the left does. Look at, I don't know. Okay, I'll use an example. Look at the stupid issue that's been going around about, you know, having transgender, you know, everybody use the same bathroom. You know, that's kind of a dumb thing, but I'm going to use it for an example. People on the left have fought, protested, tore up stuff, done everything in their power to get that transgender stupid bathroom thing. You know, they put a lot of effort and force out into getting what they wanted. I don't agree with it, but that's neither here nor there for sake of argument. We've got stuff like our constitutional rights. They're fighting more for their supposed made-up mental illness transgender bathroom thing than we've even fought to protect our constitutional rights that were given to, you know, granted by our Creator, they were just written down by our forefathers. You know, it's pretty sad that they'll stick up more for a transgender bathroom than the majority of the country will for their right to free speech and to keep and bear arms. We submit quicker than they did on the bathroom issue. That is a problem. Something so stupid and childish and all of that mess as a bathroom thing, which, you know, I don't agree with whatsoever, whatever. But nevertheless, there always should be a separate bathroom to protect the kids. I mean, that is first and foremost. But, you know, there's no reason. We need that same drive that the left has. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. And I know people use excuses of, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But, doggone it, you can do something if you want to. You think our forefathers sat back and said, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. No, they done it anyway. We all may not be able to do things in the same context. Not everybody can react the same way. But we've got internet, we've got telephones, use them. Call people, emails, do whatever. Mobilize other people, use their platforms against them. If you have Twitter, Facebook, them kind of places, you know, start a group. Try to start you a local group for your constitutional rights. Don't have to be just for guns. But for all the rights, do something, you know. Even if you fail at the end of the day, at least you know deep down you sure tried. You done the best you could do. And that's kind of the way I feel. You know, is all my efforts actually going to work in every case? I don't know. But I don't want to sit back and say, well, maybe if I would have made one more phone call, it might have worked. Or maybe one more email could have done that. You know? Exactly, Sean. That's exactly my point. the left, you know, they mobilize, they stick together for the most part. There's more infighting on the conservative side than there is on the left. You don't see your anti-gun groups fighting amongst themselves. No. But look at my state. Pro-gun groups fighting against each other all the time. Nobody's coming together. The left at least comes together. Yeah, sometimes they don't even have a clue why they're there, but they're still there. You know, they're actually, like you said, they're out doing stuff. They're making their presence known. I mean, look at Antifa, excuse me, for an example. You know, people make fun of them or whatever, but when you see a group of people out there, you can tell who they are. You know what their actions are going to be. You know who they are. When it comes to your conservative groups, you can't hardly pick half of them out in a crowd. You don't know what they're even trying to do, what they're going to do. Everything's so split that everybody... It's like the Occupy Wall Street thing that happened several years ago. At the very start, that was an okay thing. You know, let's team up and fight against the bankers and all the Wall Street and all of that. But it ended up being your little cliques over here and your clique over here and this group here. No leadership, no organization, and we've seen what it turned into. And that's kind of the way the right is. Conservative, whatever group, you know, name you want to give it. Well, we want to take credit for this, or, nah, you guys didn't do it. We're the reason that got passed or didn't go through. Man, forget all that stuff. Who cares about taking credit and getting your name out there? Man, that stuff means nothing. It's trivial and it's stupid, childish. It does not matter. We're supposed to be fighting for our rights, not glorification. I mean, you know, look at George Washington and all those guys, you know. They didn't do it just so that they could think, oh, well, if I do this, then I'll get a monument named after me or a city named. They didn't care about no monument and cities and getting recognition. No. They wanted to do what was right, get a constitution, law of the land type of deal, and, you know, make things right. That was the whole point. You're either with us or, you know, get out. It wasn't about all this dumb recognition and who can get your face plastered in the most places and the most likes on a video. And, oh yeah, like the video, by the way. But seriously, though, none of that stuff really matters. I mean, it's all trivial. Right, now, if you want to fight a good hard battle, and once you win the battle, if you want to do a little celebratory thing after the fact, that's fine. If you want to have your little barbecue and ale bash after the fact, you know, good on you. But at the same time, your protest should not be just a gathering of people to plan the barbecue. No. You got to win the battle first. Win the fight before you celebrate. These people now, all they want to do is celebrate and forget the battle. That don't work. Exactly. Washington didn't want to be king. For good reason. He knew what it was like to live under a king and all that. That's why they told old King George to stuff it. You know, go pound sand. So, you know, I hate to say this, but it's 100% true. We could learn something from the left and how they operate. And don't use the excuses, oh, well, they got billionaires financing them and all that. Man, that is true to an extent, but nevertheless, quit using excuses and cop-outs. You know, we could learn. Sean, I've been in similar situations. I've been there. I saw plenty of Facebook posts even back in May of this year, March, May, whenever it was. We had a gun rally at the State House, and I went. There was probably, I don't know, might have been 1,000 people there, I don't know. And I saw all these comments of reasons why people couldn't go. Oh, I've got a birthday party to attend, or I got this or that. And then after it was over, people saying, did anybody buy a t-shirt? Was there any vendors there selling merchandise? Or people saying, hey, when you get back, when you go to the rally, pick me up a souvenir. I'm thinking, it's not a carnival, people. You're there to stick up for your rights, not, you know, go there to party like it's some street fair. But people thought that, you know, we were going for those kind of reasons. And they ask, you know, about food vendors and all of this kind of stuff. And that's sad. That's not what it's for. Not at all. People just don't realize that. I don't get it. Protesting is not supposed to be fun. You know, it's not supposed to be an enjoyable thing. I mean, granted, I met some nice people and had some good conversations and whatnot. It wasn't a bad time, but I don't want to say I enjoyed it because of the reason we were there. I mean, you know, the camaraderie and the getting together with like-minded people, that stuff's all well and good, but it's not supposed to be a social gathering. It's not a street fair, like I said, or a carnival or something. And a lot of people just don't see it that way, or they go just to see, well, will my favorite YouTuber be there? Like Hickok, he was there. That's a whole nother mess I don't want to get into, but, you know, all that kind of stuff. And you can't, so, you know, people are doing it for totally the wrong reasons. Or they go just so they can have their phone with them to record it and get a bunch of likes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's good to show it to the people of what's going on, but, and I mean, if you're going to make some money on it, that's one thing. I mean, there are expenses and all that. I'm not bashing people for making money off this stuff. I mean, I've been treated quite nicely from all of you guys with donations and stuff, but that's not the sole purpose. The sole purpose is to get people aware of what is going on. You know, too many people just have that tunnel vision. And you can't, you know, you can't do that. You got to take the blinders off. And that's the reason I like these YouTube type things is these are unedited, live, you know, no bull, you know, it just is what it is. Not what you see on the nightly news where, like they do with Trump, they'll take one or two, you know, words or a sentence or so of his comment and making him look like the worst guy in the world. But if you listen to the entire comment, then it all makes sense. And that's how the news does with this stuff. They'll focus on one side or the other and not show the reason why it happened the way it did. That's the worst I've heard there, Sean, Minneapolis. I haven't heard of anybody getting that messed up. Wow. The Berlin Wall is a perfect example that walls work. And people always want to say that, oh, well, we don't need a wall in the U.S. because walls are a waste of time and money and all that. And they're not even really complaining about the money issue anymore, which is one of Trump's things. That's in his Art of the Deal book. You know, you start off, and he done it quite right, you know. About, you know, Mexico going to pay for the wall and all this mess. Because it started off as, you know, no wall, and then before it's all over with, you know, they'll almost agree to a wall if you can find a way to make it happen on your own. You know, that kind of a mindset. They quit wanting to stop the thing itself. But walls do work, though. And it's pretty obvious. You know, why would countries fight so much to get rid of walls if they didn't do anything? That's kind of my thinking. Like the Berlin Wall, you know, is a good example. If it didn't work, they wouldn't have, you know, if it was a waste of time and it was just there, nobody would have fought against it. They wouldn't have cared. They're like, oh, well, it's there, big deal. But no, it worked for its intended purposes for the most part. So, I mean, sure, some people still got over it and whatever, but nevertheless got through. But all in all, it was working. I'm not saying I agree with all of the politics behind it or anything, but the wall was doing its job. And that's proof that, you know, walls do work. They're not 100%, you know, foolproof or whatever, but they sure slow things down. So it's, I don't know. Why don't all the left just go to prison? You know, prison is like, I saw this and it's a meme, but still it makes sense. Prison is exactly what the left wants. You know, only the cops have guns. You get your free food, free room and board, free medical. It's a gated community. You know, it's exactly what they want. Everything is taken care of. You're not really required to do anything. So, that would be like their perfect thing. Maybe that's why so many of them are lawbreakers and end up there. I don't know. Could be something to it. But nevertheless, and if you look back at our own history, and not all that long ago, you know, when immigrants came here, you can see pictures and videos that talk about it, where the immigrants would have to go through like English classes to learn how to fit in with society. I mean, we weren't telling immigrants to forget where you come from, like the Irish and the Italians. That's why there's a lot of, you know, Italian and bakeries and all the different food type stuff that's been brought over. But, you know, we weren't telling people to forget your homeland. But at the same time, they had to realize that this wasn't going to turn into their homeland either. If you wanted to bring some aspects of your culture, that's one thing. Whether it be food, music, whatever. But for the most part, you're going to have to come together and be one people. Be Americans. That's it. And they were taught that. Yeah, assimilated. That's the word. I couldn't think of it. But yeah. But now, I don't know why it's not so obvious to more people, but it's not that they're trying to escape their homeland. They're trying to spread it. Because if I lived in some other country, I don't know, Lucky Stan, you know, or whatever. If I lived in some country called Lucky Stan and it was so awful that I got to run over to the United States, you know, well, if Lucky Stan was so bad, then Why would I want to turn the United States into what I just ran away from? That makes absolutely no sense. You would want to get away from that old mess and get a new life, start over, do good, and go on about your business. So that proves right there that those other countries, they're not trying to escape anything. That's what a true refugee is. Or, you know, they're trying to escape a bad situation, not spread it. But in this day and age, all they want to do is spread it. Look at the Muslims that are supposed refugees from the Middle East or whatever. You know, if their country's so bad and they really hate it, come over here, want to be Americans and do, you know, be like the rest of us, come in the legal way, fine. But don't come over here and turn it into what you supposedly ran away from. Exactly, flying the old flags and stuff. That makes no sense. I've used this example too, and it might be kind of crude, but if you're escaping a bad situation, why would you fly that country's flag? And I put that in kin to, you know, if a woman happened to get raped, she wouldn't keep a picture of her rapist on her nightstand by her bed. No, because it reminded her of a bad thing in her life, a bad, horrible event, and you don't want to be reminded of it. So, if your country you're running from is that bad, you would want to forget it. You're like, forget that mess. I'm out of here. Now, granted, we had a lot of immigrants back 1800s and stuff. Not all of them left because the country was, you know, evil necessarily. But they had a lot of other reasons. You know, work. There was the potato famine over in Ireland. You know, there was a lot of different issues. Not really comparable to today. But nevertheless, I mean, you don't want to remember all of that stuff. Sharia law and all that, you know. Trying to turn USA into the Middle East. No. Religion, right. I mean, they might have remembered their heritage, so to speak. What it was like before it all went to crap. But nevertheless, I mean, you can't turn this place into that. Because if you do, you're going to get the same thing. That would have been like our founding fathers coming over here and then turning this place into England. Well, we would have been in the same mess that all these people that we watch on the streams are in. Would have been no good. Might as well just stayed there. Save everybody the hassle and just stay put. You know, that don't work. So, I don't know. But going back to, like I said earlier, unless we get some massive event that affects every one of us at the exact same time, I don't see a thing changing. It's like the old story, you know, that's been passed around for years. The farmer and the pig. Farmer wants to catch a pig. Puts out a pile of corn. Pig comes and eats that corn every day. Well, one day, farmer puts a piece of fence up. Pig's still coming and going, doing what he wants, eating his corn. A few days later, farmer puts another piece of fence up. And it continues on. Then the farmer puts the third piece up, and the pig comes back again, still eating his corn, running back and forth for a few days. Till one day he's eating the corn. Farmer puts the last piece of fence up. Next thing you know, pig's trapped. There's nowhere he can go. He enjoyed all them freebies so long with such a blind eye that now, hey, he's caught. And that's exactly what's happening with this country. They know if they spread it out over a long enough time period, it'll work. Remember back in the 90s, and a lot of you probably even way before then remember even lower prices. But I remember in the 90s around here, gas, 95, 96 cents a gallon. If they would have jumped it to $3 a gallon, people would have rioted in the streets and had a fit. But they slowly raised it, and slowly raised it, and slowly raised it. Now, we've had $3 gas before. Not at the moment, but we've had it. And nobody said a word. They complained a little bit, mumbled and grumbled, but didn't do anything about it. Just whatever. So they do it very, very slowly. To where it just becomes, oh, well, that's just supposed to happen. No, it ain't. But it's just one of them things. Like I say, if the country can be saved, I don't know, but hopefully before it's too late. Of course, none of us have the answers, but I don't really think there is a cut and dry answer. But, like I said, we need the drive that the left has. We could learn a few things. Look how many of them have marched in D.C. for the different causes that they have and all of that. You know, there was all those people out there with the pink hats on, running around acting all dumb. You know, as dumb as their causes were, they mobilized and were there. You never see a pro-Constitution group mobilize in those kind of numbers. It don't happen. Because everybody's too scared of what will people think, or I don't have time, or whatever excuse they can come up with. So, I don't know. That's the way I see it. A crashing economy, it would have to be a global economy crash, yes. Because in this country, if the economy were to completely collapse or crash, that could actually help the left. That could get a lot of the people on the right to actually go toward the left. Because all it would take is the right people, government or whoever that controls the strings, to go together and start doing handouts and all of that kind of stuff, and actually make things worse. People will go where the handouts are if the situation's bad enough. Dave, I don't know if it'll be that far away. You know, I don't know. I'm giving it, I'm going to have to say I'm going to give it no more than about 12 years. Maybe less. The only reason I even say 12 years is that, well, if Trump gets elected again, then that'll delay it. But as soon as he's out of there, whatever Democrat gets the job next, by the end of their possibly second term, 68's still young. You got a ways to go. Unless you plan on keeling over tomorrow. But nevertheless, I mean, you know, when a Democrat gets in there, the first 4 years we might survive. But the second 4, I think we're done. So if we get 2 Democrats back to back or the same person, this country's done for. It will crash harder than it ever has, in my opinion. Don't count on the police or the military. Don't count on that. Look at the guy in Maryland. Cops killed him in cold blood because he wouldn't give up his guns. That'll happen. And I support the police, but to a point. They look at it as they got families to feed and all that stuff too, so... You got to protect yourself, number one. Even if you can get grouped together, get organized, you know, something, but at the end of the day, you got to look after you. So it's always good to pay attention to these outside news sources. Even people like Alex Jones and stuff. You know, not necessarily listening to every word he says, but he does bring out some good headlines and stuff. Granted, you'll have to do your own research to find out how much truth there is in it. But that is a good way to get some good headlines by your out-of-the-way third-party news sources. Kind of go to their website, see what's scrolling around, and you know, what people's posting, Drudge reports, and different things. And then do some research and... Granted, yes, in the Fed, I go along with that completely, ZZ. The Fed's got more power than anybody realizes. I mean, they outweigh everybody. The Fed can crash this economy on a global scale at any moment's notice for any reason that they choose. They run the show. Yeah, they need to go for sure. Well, guys, it seems like the protest thing definitely sucks. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so. I didn't say we wouldn't win, but it's not going to be as easy as people thinks. ZZ, I hear too many people say stuff like, oh, if we have a civil war, if it starts at 9 in the morning, we'll be done by noon. The left don't know how to fight. The left won't fight back and all that. That's the wrong attitude. It will not end in just a few short hours or a day like people thinks. It's going to be a very hard-fought battle the whole way, you know. Yeah, we'll win the battle. Right will prevail at the end of the day. But it's just not going to be a simple, easy thing that, you know, we declare it and end it almost simultaneously. That doesn't work. The left has a lot of guns, too. That's another misconception. The left doesn't want to ban guns. They want to ban you from having a gun. Always remember that. But I'm going to go ahead, guys, and call it here. Been going for, well, it says 87 minutes. But, excuse me. So if anything else comes up, I'll try to pop up a stream or see what's going on. I'm not really aware of anything big that's going to kick off, but something happens, I'll start something up. I always appreciate the chat. You know, there's been times we've even had several hundred people in here, and it still stays as one of the best chats on YouTube. No fighting, no carrying on. We get a troll once in a while, but it's even rare that the mods even have to do a whole lot, because everybody else kind of takes care of them. So I appreciate everybody and all the support and all that. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, please do so. Thanks to the new sub that subscribed earlier. You can hit the bell and all that stuff so you'll be notified when I go live again. Like the video. I appreciate it. But another thing too, I don't take one dime of YouTube money. The only thing I get is donations from all you guys. Always appreciated. Links in description. So take it easy, guys. Stay safe. And if you want to learn about the Fed, Google the speech by G. Edward Griffin, The Creature from Jekyll Island. Well worth listening to. It's also a book, but the speech is just as good. So take it easy, guys. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.